Hello everyone, it's Annie and I'm here today with my March wrap-up. So this reading month was actually not super great for me. There were only a couple of books that I really liked. Most of them were kind of average, but I have a lot to talk about, so we're gonna get on with it. It's a little bit cloudy, so hopefully the lighting is okay. I also want to say that I started reading the Women's Prize for Fiction long list for my annual vlog, and I'm not gonna give too many details about those books here because I want you to watch my vlog when it comes out, but I'm not sure when that will be, so I'll tell you a little bit about them. So first is The Great Circle. I was debating including this in this video because I actually DNF'd it about halfway through. I just hated it so much that I couldn't get through it, and I have not regretted DNFing it. I can't really say anything about it because I did DNF it, but it was just extremely long with irrelevant chapters thrown in there that just did not need to be there. I'm not sure what was going on. Like about half of this book could have been cut and it would not have suffered one bit. It would have been greatly improved. So that's my opinion on The Great Circle. I was really disappointed because this had actually been on my TBR before it was ever nominated for the Women's Prize for Fiction. So I was pretty disappointed that I ended up disliking it so much that I couldn't even finish it. So yeah, that is very sad. But I hope if you do decide to read it that you like it better than I did. So the next book is also for the Women's Prize. It is Build Your House Around My Body. I didn't really like this one either, but I did finish it. So I'll wait to tell you the details about it until my vlog, but this is about a young Vietnamese American woman who goes to Vietnam to teach English. So I liked that part of it because I went to Japan to teach English, so I kind of related to her being an expat. And her, job teaching English there was interesting to read about. But there was just a lot going on. I didn't really understand the book. I tend to like books that, you have to kind of figure out a little bit. It makes you work for it. But this was just extremely confusing, and I didn't enjoy reading it. So wait for my vlog to hear all about all of my opinions on this, but unfortunately, I didn't really enjoy this one. Okay, so now some books that I just read on my own. Next is Yerba Buena by Nina LaCour. This is for my Sapphic vlog. I already uploaded it, so you can watch it up here somewhere. And I rated this about a 2.75. It was following two women who are kind of star-crossed, not really, they keep meeting each other and it keeps not working, right person, wrong time type of thing. They each have their own traumas. One of them has a lot of issues with her father, and her brother was in foster care, and they end up meeting again later, and that is very touching, and I enjoyed that storyline a lot. I think I mentioned in my vlog that it was hard for me to distinguish which main character was which in my mind, which is a little bit of an issue. I feel like their voices were the same, written the same, so that was weird. And also something that I didn't really like is that they only met 50% through the book, and I thought that it was going to be more of a Sapphic romance than that. So that was a little strange. That's not what I was expecting, but it was interesting. I just think that the book wasn't for me. It wasn't what I usually read, so that's why I didn't like it. I think that definitely a lot of people will like this book. If you're into more literary contemporary style of writing, definitely get this because it's very much like that. I did enjoy the descriptions of the cocktails that one of the characters makes, and the other character does floral arrangements, so that was really cool to read about. But yeah, it just wasn't for me, but it was, you know, it's Nina LaCour. I still really like her, but I'm going to probably stick to her YA. And next we have Thousand Steps into Night by Tracy Chee. This was something I was really excited about. I did end up rating it a 3 stars, but I didn't not like it. It was just, you know, it was marketed as YA, but this is a book that definitely is kind of like crossover potential with middle grade. So I was expecting something for a little bit of an older audience, but that's okay. That's who it was written for, and that's fine. It was cute. I think it was a little heavy-handed with some of the themes. It follows this girl who grows up in a village where she's the innkeeper's daughter, and women are really like subservient and just horribly, like treated horribly. And she has to like go on an adventure and fight all these demons and gods, and in order to get back to her village. But, you know, on her adventure, she realizes, like, well, maybe she doesn't fit in with the village, and maybe that's not even what she wants. So maybe she'll just become a demon instead. And it was very interesting. It's definitely more middle grade. There is, like, a cute animal companion in the form of a magpie who's on the cover. I will be reading more of Tracy Chee. I'm really interested in her other historical fiction book, which is We Are Not Free. I think that would probably be more up my alley, but I did really enjoy this. And if you're looking for a really fun Japanese-inspired kind of like whimsical fantasy, then this is definitely going to be up your alley. And then we have Tiger Honor by Yoon-Ha Lee. I was so excited for this book because I loved Dragon Pearl, which was the first in this duology. But this book disappointed me a little bit. It just wasn't as good as Dragon Pearl. I did rate it a 3. I really enjoyed the fact that the main character is non-binary in this book. That was really great to see. I love Yoon-Ha Lee so much. He's one of my favorite authors. But this book takes place in the span of like one day, which I have a little bit of an issue reading books like that. That's just my personal taste. And also it starts really slow. Like I remember I listened to it on audio, and it starts with the main character waiting for a package. And like, I just remember wondering, like, if like this is sci-fi and they're part of like an all-powerful empire, why are they sending physical packages? It does make sense in the plot, it does, but it was just so slow. And that part of them waiting for the package and like running around trying to get the mail, like it takes so long, and it like, that is just not an exciting way to start a book, I feel. I don't know, I thought that was an odd choice. But I did enjoy it, like the action was there. It's kind of from the other side of the perspective of Dragon Pearl, and you do meet Min, I believe is her name, the main character from Dragon Pearl. It's kind of taking place at the same time, so that was interesting. But I highly recommend reading Dragon Pearl because that is such a great book. And this was definitely worth it to read, but you know, Dragon Pearl was just so great. It had a lot to live up to. Okay, the next book I buddy read with Robin, and I'll have their channel linked in the description. This is Do You Dream of Terra 2 by Temi O. Both me and Robin didn't really love it. I rated it a 3.5. It was interesting. It was definitely more, not more YA than I thought, but the premise of this book is that a bunch of teenagers are chosen to go on this mission to Terra 2 to colonize a new Earth because we've messed up our original Earth irrevocably, which is a very interesting concept because, you know, you need young people to like colonize and make a new population, and you know, when the older people who are their mentors die, they have to take over. So that's an interesting dynamic. We have the older generation on this ship and the teenagers. I was expecting it to actually involve Terra 2, but the whole thing was them on the ship until the very end. It focused a lot on the relationships between all of these teenagers and their drama, and I did not enjoy that. There were two main romantic relationships that just were both really not good. They rubbed me the wrong way, and Robin agreed. I really just didn't enjoy reading about them. I did like the characters individually and how they all fit together. There was one character named Poppy who was a really interesting character, and she's like a polyglot, so she speaks a whole ton of languages and is like, that's her role, to kind of advertise their mission to Earth in a bunch of different languages. I thought that was really cool. But I don't know, and there were just things that didn't make sense to me, like one character named Harry is kind of like the commander in training, and he is just like a psychopath. Like, really, he is a horrible person, and he does these terrible things to another one of the crew members, and the others just don't care, like, at all. They're just like, oh, like, you're overreacting, just get over it. And it's like, he literally almost killed this guy. And they're just acting like it's no big deal. And it's like, if I were them, I would be more concerned that you have a psychopath attempted murderer on your ship. But okay, that's just me. So yeah, there were some weird things going on in this book. I do think that it picked up towards the end. There were like some more exciting scenes, but I just wish it was more about that and like the space aspect and colonization of a new planet aspect than the interpersonal drama. And now for another one of the Women's Prize for Fiction books is The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki. I ended up rating this 3.5. I enjoyed this book. It was very, very weird. Not something I would have picked up if it wasn't on the Women's Prize for Fiction list, but I'm glad I did. It was very strange. It follows this boy named Benny and his mother after his father dies in a tragic accident. He was hit by a truck. That's in the first chapter of the book, not a spoiler. And then Benny starts hearing voices from objects like books, scissors, clocks, things like that. And his mother is also dealing with a lot of emotional problems, obviously, because her husband just died. And you kind of see their reaction and journey through grief and kind of like growing apart and then coming back together. And it was really good. I really enjoyed it. It was a little strange in some parts. The beginning took me a while to get into it, but I am really glad that I picked this up and that I actually liked it. So definitely check out my vlog when it gets uploaded so you can hear more about it. And now on to the 4 stars. So I read these books for the Koreadathon, which was really fun. First is Kim Ji-young, born 1982. This is a really short book following a woman who is kind of the every girl millennial in Korea, and she quits her job to become a mother, like many women in Korea do, and she ends up having this psychotic break where she starts talking and mimicking the voices of other women. I thought it was really interesting, and she's brought to a male psychiatrist for this, and it was different than I was expecting. I expected this to be a 5 stars, actually. It was less about her mental health and more about her past, and it was very interesting still to read about her past, but I expected it to be more about that psychotic break that she had and like kind of figuring out why and kind of having a resolution at the end, but there wasn't. It was more about her past growing up and how she met her husband and things like that, which was still very interesting, but I just felt like I needed a little bit more from this book. I just wanted a little bit more, but it was still really, really good, and I definitely recommend this. And then for the other Koreadathon prompt, I read The Investigation by J.M. Lee. This was a book that I have been meaning to read for years. This is a fictionalized account of the Korean poet named Yoon Dong-ju. I have a whole video about him. I did my thesis on him in college. I really, really love his poetry, and he was a resistance poet during the Japanese occupation of Korea. And he was imprisoned in Fukuoka for his poetry and he unfortunately died there pretty much right before he would have been released, before the war was over. So his story is extremely tragic, and this book is also extremely sad and tragic. I did expect this to be a 5. It's a 4 only because the writing was so dry. I'm not sure if it was the translation's fault or if that's just how it was written, but it was so dry, and I feel like it could have been much better, especially because it's about a poet. The writing just left something to be desired, the style of it, but the story itself was, I mean, it's a fictionalized account, but this man did really live, and I thought that the way it was presented was very interesting. There's this investigation going on at the prison in Fukuoka about the death of a guard there, and this younger guard is trying to figure out, like, well, who killed him, you know, why did he die? And this guard that died had a poem in his pocket, so that kind of leads him to Yoon Dong-ju, and it's just a really interesting multi-layered mystery going on, and it has a lot of commentary about the Japanese occupation of Korea. So if you're interested in that period of history, definitely check this out. It is really good, and I'm so glad I finally read it. The next book is the final revival of Opal and Nev, which I also read for the Women's Prize for Fiction. I gave this a 4, might be like a 4.25, something like that. I really like this. It's a historical fiction following Opal, who is a young black singer who gets chosen to be like the partner of this English guy named Nev, and they become like a famous rock duo. And there is a problem that happens at one of their concerts where another singer band who is performing at the same concert has a Confederate flag, and then that incident kind of makes Opal and Nev infamous, and it's really interesting. It's told in an interview format. I really highly recommend listening to the audiobook. It was done so well, and I absolutely loved the character of Opal. She was great. I loved this book. I'll tell you more details when my vlog comes out, but I highly recommend this, especially if you like interview style books like Evelyn Hugo and I'm assuming Daisy Jones and the Six, although I haven't read that. This was just really good. And then next we have Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. This was one of my most anticipated releases, and I'm so glad I read it. It was long though. I did rate it a 4, but it was very long and kind of like almost 3 books in one. I feel like this could have very easily been split up into like 2 or 3 different books. And I do know that there's a second one coming out, so I'm like, what? Like, okay, I'm not sure how that works. But it follows the Daughter of the Moon Goddess, obviously, and she has to go to the mortal realm. And the first part of the book is that while she's there, she is like this servant, and she hates it, and she misses her mom and her, you know, moon realm. And then she meets this prince, and she goes into a competition to be this prince's companion, and she wins because the prince likes her. And that's only the first part of the book. I remember reading it and be like, wow, this is going really quickly. Like, what else is going to happen? A lot happens, and I can't summarize it all here, otherwise I'll be talking forever. There is a love triangle, which I didn't expect, and I didn't really like, but it was done in a very interesting way. The main character was really cool. I really liked her. I thought she was extremely well developed, a really strong character with a very strong voice. I did like the whole vibe of it, but it was really long. That's the only reason why it's not a 5-star. I think if it was cut down or if it was split into 2 books, it would have been a little bit better or easier to read. But it's a beautiful story, and I definitely highly recommend it, and I'm absolutely going to read the second one. And then we have the last 4 stars, which I've been putting off talking about because I don't know what to say. It is Strange Beasts in China by Yang Ge. This was the Found in Translation book club pick for this month, but I am not really sure what to say about it. It is a fantasy sci-fi kind of collection of short stories, although it's not marketed that way. It was very strange, as the title suggests. It follows this woman who is like studying these beasts that live amongst the humans in this fictional city. And there are different kinds of beasts. There are like beasts that laugh, beasts that cry, beasts that can't smile, beasts that live forever. I'm not really sure. I feel like there's a metaphor that I'm missing that would have made me like it more. I did like it. Like, I enjoyed the story. It wasn't super memorable to me, but there wasn't anything like inherently wrong with it. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to understand the point of the book. But definitely check out our live show for it. It's going to be up on April 5th at 8:30. We're having a live show discussing it. So if you are interested in hearing about it and maybe I'll learn what it's actually about, definitely come and see our live show. Okay, so the last two books are 5 stars. The first is The Island of Missing Trees, and I did read this for the Women's Prize for Fiction vlog. This is my favorite so far, because I haven't finished. This is about the Cyprus conflict in the 70s, and it follows a couple of different points of views. My favorite is that it has chapters from the point of view of a fig tree, and it is just so magical. I love it. It follows also the point of views of a woman who is Turkish and a man who is Greek, and they fall in love, and at that time that was like not allowed because that was the whole conflict there. So they had to kind of break things off. And then it follows the point of view of a young girl who is their daughter in the future, in like the 2000s in London. And it follows her, and it talks about generational trauma and also the effect of war on nature and animals, which we don't often think about. This was just mind-blowingly beautiful. I loved this book so much. The writing, beautiful, such great prose, such great characters. Every character like jumped off the page. Even the fig tree felt so alive and just lush and magical. It was so great, so great. And it makes me want to read more about the Cyprus conflict. So if you have any recommendations for fiction or nonfiction about the war in Cyprus, please recommend them to me because I definitely want to learn more about it. And then my favorite book I read this month was Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. I am so glad that I really liked this book. I was hesitant about it because it is an adult romance, and I don't normally read those. I read this from my latest Sapphic reading vlog, and I loved it so much. So good. I loved the characters. Ashley Herring Blake she's so good. Really great author. Delilah is a wedding photographer, and she goes back to her hometown for her stepsister's wedding to photograph her wedding. She meets Claire, who is one of her sister's really close friends, and they kind of hit it off. And yeah, drama ensues, and it's really good. I just love all of the relationships between the characters, even the side characters. An interesting thing is that Claire is actually a single mother, and I really love the relationship she has with her daughter and that Delilah has with her daughter as well. I think it was handled really well. That's an interesting little nugget in a romance book that you don't normally see. And I also really liked Delilah's stepsister's character, Astrid, and she's going to be the star of the sequel of this, which I am really looking forward to. I'm so glad I read this book, and if you're just looking for a really fun, steamy sapphic romance, this is definitely the one to pick up. Okay, and that is it for my March wrap-up. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really looking forward to spring when it gets more sunny and warm. So I'm looking forward to reading in April, especially for Linguathon. So definitely check out that video, and if you liked this, please like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye!